Do it now.
Do it.
It's hitting
The
live.
Bears.
We're live. Yeah, you rolled in a little bit of the Chicago accent there.
Yeah, a little. Every now and then it'll pop up. I think I've been doing the bit for so long, like with my family. I do it to my family. Like I do the goofy accent to my family sometimes. So
Is it a bit?
I'm not really from Chicago, so
No.
no.
You roll in, you got a little bit of that area accent, which I do not. So
Well, I'm Illinois my whole life, so it's like the last 8-9 years Wisconsin. So, but I guess I got that accent, I guess you want to call it. So it is what it is.
Well, it's an accent. I mean, it's a regional dialect accent, right? I mean, everybody has an accent. It's you only think you don't, but you have one.
Yeah.
So that was brutal.
That was a terrible game. I was telling you on the pre-show, it's like I went back and rewatched it for whatever reason. I don't know why I put myself through that again, but parts of the game I don't remember. Like the first time I watched it. I mean, I watched it all. I sat there in front of the TV and watched it all, but either I blacked it out or just some parts I just kind of zoned away, or I was tweeting too much, or I was like, this game is just awful. I just didn't give it my full undivided attention. So the second time going through, I'm sure I did the same there. It was just a brutal watch. 41-13, 41-10. Yeah, it's just 41.
Well, 41-13 would have made me at least somewhat happy since I bet the over.
That would have hit the over. Yeah, okay.
God, you got to be kidding me. Didn't hit the over because one team just said, okay, this game's over. You're not really competing here. And the other team, the team that I cheer for, decided that they couldn't move the ball after the second possession. So
terrible.
That was cool.
Against one of the worst. I mean, the Bears are the worst defense, but the Lions they're in the team picture for sucky defenses this year for sure.
They came into the week giving up the most points in the league, 8 points more than the Bears. That is no longer the case.
That was my stat.
They would take that mantle.
Week,
yeah. That was a good stat last week, though.
Yeah,
I went back and checked. They've never, and it was kind of insane. So the stat last week the Lester brought on was Bears have never had the worst scoring defense in the league. I went back and looked. He's right. But then I started adding it up, and it was some kind of insanity. It was like they've had the best scoring defense 12 times. They've had the second best scoring defense another 9 times, and then top 5 finishes 50 times.
Wow.
50. Like out of 102, 103, whatever.
Which is why, as Bears fans, it's ingrained in our psyche.
50. That's
defense
half.
Wins championships because it's
or is at least what we're used to.
Yeah, that's what we're used to.
Yeah, that's insane. 50. Basically half of the franchise. They put out a top 5 defense.
Wow.
That was kind of a like, whoa, okay. Anyway.
You ready to get rolling?
I'm ready.
Let's do it.
Ready. Just such a game.
Yes.
All right. Welcome to Bear and Balance. I'm Jeff Berckes, a writer for Windy City Gridiron, and I'm joined by the editor of that fine website, Lester A. Wiltfong Jr. Lester, the Bears played the Lions. They played a football game. They played 60 minutes, and that's about the nicest thing that I can say about it. How are you feeling today?
It was a close. The first quarter was, the Bears were right there, right in it. And then, of course, the Lions, where they had 28, 30 some unanswered points, just dismantled the Bears. And, we expected it. I mean, the Lions were going to put some points up. I don't think we expected the Bears to go into early hibernation, but I guess if you're rooting for the tank, that was a good game for those fans.
Yeah, I mean, Bears did what we thought they could do. They came out of the gate, had a nice first possession, moved the ball quickly down the field, capped it off with a nice little touchdown pass. Okay, feeling good. Get the ball back. Justin Fields breaks one. Looks like he's going to score. It's like, okay, 2 possessions, 2 touchdowns. Isn't that great? It's tackled the 7. You're like, oh, that's a bummer, but you're going to punch it in here. They don't, and Justin Fields takes one of those terrible sacks that we hate, where he just needs to dump the ball and take an incompletion. And it was just like, is this what's going to happen today? And in hindsight, that's absolutely what was going to happen. They settled for a field goal, and that was it for the scoring. Detroit went up so much that basically the entire fourth quarter they just sat on the ball. They didn't even want to score. They were just sort
No.
of trying to run the clock out. Very sad performance at the end of the year. You want to see at least a little something. There's some reasons behind that. There's a lot of discontinuity up front, which we will, I'm sure, get into. But overall, a pretty sad effort. And I don't really want to delay too much because I'm just going to wallow in my pity. And this
Yeah.
is a barren balance show, so we are supposed to try to balance this out. So let's start off with the Portillo's Trench tribute. Even if the Bears lose, which they've been doing a lot of this year,
Yeah.
we still give out a $100 gift card. We've given out a ton of them. We are running out of them, which is great. That means that the cake shakes and the Italian beef and all of the goodness that's at Portillo's is being distributed around the continental United States. We have not had anybody from outside the continental United States win one of these, which that would be probably not the best thing in the world.
We actually did have one winner who I think was, I want to say Australia. And he told me, hey, I don't live in the States. They don't ship overseas. You guys can do the draw again. I love the show. I love what you guys do. But he said, I am going to get to the States at some point, but it's not going to be for a while. So just go ahead and redraw that one. So that was 1 week where we did that. So I mean, Barren Balance is all over the world.
It's all over the world. I wish we would have been able to trade him for like a didgeridoo or something. Like, there's got to be some sort of trade that we can do of Barren Balanced stuff for some sort of cool Australian gift, but maybe we'll figure that out in the future. Hit us up where you get your Barren Balance, 2ndcitygridiron@gmail.com if you would like to do that. On the Twitter machine, you can hit up and respond to the tweet that we have out there for the Portillo's Player of the Week. You can put it in the comments here on the YouTube. That does count. Put it on the Facebook, wherever you get your Barren Balance. Player of the Week. It's hard this week. I get it. But we are going to start off in the trenches as we always do. Trench tribute, and I'm going to let you start. It is your turn to start this week.
Before I get into it, I will say that last week's winner, Josh Winslow, came from the YouTube, and YouTube's not like Twitter. I can't just DM you, reach out to you. So I had to make a comment in there. So Josh Winslow, if you're listening or if someone knows Josh,
come on down.
Let him know. $100 gift card waiting for you. But for me, trench tribute, like you said, man, it's hard. The trenches were not good this week. The Bears defense was gashed. The offense did nothing. So I'm doing a little stat line scouting here, and I'm going to go Justin Jones, 6 tackles, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss. And one of the reasons why I'm going with Justin Jones is because he's been playing some defensive end the last few weeks. He actually got to start at defensive end this game. He's one of the few guys, I think, of the front seven, or the D-line, I should say, that's going to come back next year. He's under contract. He's showing some position versatility. I like him as a player. I don't like him as your best defensive lineman. So I think if he's a part of this thing, if he has some better talent around him, he'll be fine. I can't see them cutting him. It doesn't make any sense. There'd be a bit of a cap hit there. He's got a bonus, $2.5 million coming up here, but it's not an outlandish cap hit, $7.5 million next year. I think he'll be here. He'll be part of this unit going forward. And, he'll be one of these guys that kind of helps teach the hits principle, the philosophy to all the newcomers they get. There's going to be a lot of them.
Yeah, it's really the only choice this week. He got a sack, and it was during the game when it was still somewhat live, right? Like the starters were in the game. Yeah. It was a good rep. It was a good rush. It wasn't necessarily like a coverage sack or anything like that. It was a nice rush. It's only his 3rd sack this year. It's really sad. I'm going to get into that in a little bit here.
Oh, so am I. That's good.
Oh, so again, we've talked about Justin Jones a lot. If he's your 4th best defensive lineman, you feel pretty good about that. The fact that he's the best defensive lineman on the team right now, it's not surprising that he's not really able to do much because, blocking schemes can kind of focus in on him. And he has been moving around a little bit, showing a little versatility. I think that's pretty good to see. He really is the only person that I would want to see back on this defensive line, at least in the starting role. Again, Armon Watts is starting right now. You'd like to see him be a rotational piece. The fact that Travis Gibson is starting, he doesn't look like a starter, right? He looks like probably your 3rd defensive end, maybe your 4th. We won't write the book on Dominique Robinson yet, but giving him real I believe Al-Qadim Muhammad might have gotten on the stat sheet this week. I think he had a pass defense.
Yeah.
So I almost gave it to him out of because we've been so hard on him. But I don't even put his number in the starting lineup for the 10-minute drill because I'm just like, no, I'm not acknowledging that Al-Qadim Mohammed is a starter because he doesn't do anything. So I don't even put his number in the starting lineup. But I agree with you. I think that's the only real option here. The offensive line was dreadful. He was in tatters. Just make a mention of that Tevin Jenkins, not quite sure why he's starting, if he's having injury issues, and he was out like that. And then unfortunately, Michael Schofield, who came in, he's the top reserve at guard. He was quickly out of the game as well, had a knee injury, and so you were down to Dieter Iceland getting a lot of reps on the offensive line. And we've talked about 8 different starting lineups with this offensive line throughout the year, and you've had even more when you start to get injury replacements. It's very tough to get any sort of continuity going, and you have a lot of players that really aren't. They're not starting caliber players, or they're at their end of their career, like a guy like. Unfortunately, probably like Cody Whitehair. I mean, this is clearly something's going on with him. He came back from injury and he hasn't been the same person. Riley Reef, very nice career, but this is almost certainly probably his last year or very close to it for him. So you just do not have the talent or the continuity or in any of that you really need for an offensive line, and that's made things really tough. So I'm not picking anybody from the offensive line. So let's just move on to Twitter. Tweet of the week. We got a couple fun ones here. Why don't you start us off with this one?
He is Adam the Don't Stare Directly at the Sunworm.
What the heck does that mean?
I have no idea. He is a producer at 670 The Score, but he tweeted this during the Steelers game when, of course, the rookie quarterback Kenny Pickett was doing his thing. He tweeted, "I really wonder what it's like for your young QB to have actual NFL players surrounding him," which makes me want to ask you this question. This season, obviously, Ryan Poles was handicapped. He couldn't do a lot of things, but there were some moves he probably could have made a little earlier. We saw him address a receiver at one point with Chase Claypool. Jury's out on that. O-line wasn't the best that he did there. So was 2022 a missed opportunity for this regime to really see what Fields has? Because as a fan, it's hard for me to take off the fan glasses and say, hey, maybe he's not the guy. Because he looks like he's the guy. I've seen enough flash where I think he's going to be the guy, but it seems like the Bears are in on him. But was this a missed opportunity? Did they not give him enough stuff to really get a good gauge on what Justin Fields is going to be?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely, it was a missed opportunity, right? I think that I've said this a couple times, but very early on in the tenure of Ryan Poles, he had an opportunity to trade for Amari Cooper. And I think he was still trying to figure things out. And I think Amari Cooper probably would have come pretty cheap. And I think that he just thought, you know what? No, there's going to be a lot out here. I'll figure it out. He didn't take that. And then he was kind of chasing his tail from that point. He got to the draft. I think he had Christian Watson probably identified with one of his picks. We've heard some things that was kind of what he was thinking. That's what the building was thinking, was that he had his eye on Christian Watson. Watson was taken before the Bears' 2 picks. And so that was off the board. He looked at some of those other guys, maybe like an Alex Pierce, and said, well, he's going to be around for a 3rd-round draft pick. He wasn't, right? He was taken right after Jaquan Brisker was taken. And so then you get to the Bears' 3rd-round pick and they take Velus Jones. And I think it was probably one of those situations like, hey, we have to do something here. And Velus Jones clearly has not done anything of note in the positive direction on the offensive side of the football, not special teams. He's looked pretty good as a special teamer. But I think that he really kind of chased his tail from that moment. I think he missed that opportunity. And I think that really probably pushed him to make the Chase Claypool trade, right? I think that kind of pushed that. That looks worse because he hasn't been able to do much. He was hurt, really hasn't gotten into a rhythm with Justin Fields. And then the pick has continued to get better and better for Pittsburgh, right? So it's unfortunate. I'm not writing off Chase Claypool by any stretch of the imagination. I want to see what he looks like with the full off season, but I think there's a little bit of rookie mistake, then maybe compounding it a little bit. The offensive line stuff, I mean, you and I both were pretty worried, right? Coming into the year, your highest signing is Lucas Patrick, and you're kind of battling with your former high pick in Tevin Jenkins and telling him he's not a tackle and he's guard and he's not practicing. And, there's a lot of weird stuff. And we were kind of critical on this and not really loving where this was going. And so I think that there were missed opportunities. That again, second round of the draft, you take 2 defensive players. Again, everything needed to be helped. But if you felt like Justin Fields was potentially the guy, then why not at least try to protect him and give him a little bit more juice? And so, I do think there was an opportunity to make sure that you knew the answer to that question at the end of the year.
It's just rough now because now I think they're a little more in on him now than they were. They're going to build around him a little bit, but what if he doesn't take a step as a passer? Now you're one more year behind of what you're doing here. Now you have to go ahead and, in 2024, now you have to go and make that decision. And hopefully you have another full offseason now where you actually do bolster up the supporting cast. And if that's the case, then if you got to go with a new quarterback, then, he'll be able to step into a better situation. But missed opportunity. I think they could have done a little more. And, that's not just hindsight talking. We talked about it, before the season, during the season, we kind of talked about it. So I always harken back to Dakota Dozier being their move. It's like, what the hell are we doing here?
Well, and you talk to Packers writers, right? I mean, I don't try to do that too much because we got to keep those enemy lines, as strong as possible. But a couple guys I talked to, and okay, Lucas Packer, tell me about him. And the report that I got was basically, well, if if he's the guy that you are counting on to be your center, you're in trouble. And I was like, oh, okay, like that's not great. He's like, yeah, you can hide him at guard, but and I'm not sure that was true. So I was hoping that we'd get to see him at center and see if that evaluation was off. But that was kind of their highlight move, right? Like they brought him in, they made him front and center. Like they tried to put him in front of the microphone and all that. Like it was, they had a 5th round rookie tackle. He's played every snap. He's looked pretty good for a 5th round rookie making the jump. But again, that was their big solution to this. Pretty rough. Leads into my tweet. I've got a screenshot here for the people on YouTube.
Nice.
This is a poll that just closed. Danny Parkins at Danny Parkins says, okay, I'm firmly in on Justin Fields. I think that Lester and I agree with that sentiment as well. Give him help and time. I think he'll be special. My stance is well established, but I'm curious if the Bears got the first pick and Ryan Poles decided to draft Bryce Young, who's everybody's saying this is the no doubt number 1 guy, and trade Justin Fields for 2 first-round picks and 4 total picks, as a fan, you would be. And then shocked and angry won the poll with 42%. Shocked and sad was another 22%. Shocked and happy was 10%. And then respect Poles' boldness was 26%. So maybe that's more of a like, hey man, I respect the player, right? Or whatever. Like, I wouldn't have done that, but like good for you or whatever it is on that last one. But I think that shows for the most part, people are in on Justin Fields.
Yeah.
That's after that was a terrible performance. And then still 64% would be shocked and either angry or sad, right? Polls respecting the boldness, we'll just kind of call that like a 25% that's sort of just sitting out or whatever.
Yeah.
So I do think that the fans are still in on Justin Fields. I think that it's worth talking about as just a hypothetical. I don't think that happens. But if this regime came in and they were not convinced that Justin Fields was the guy, and then you wanted to start doing the conspiracy theory stuff that Robert riffed on for like 20 minutes after we did the 10-minute drill, just went, grassy knoll type stuff. But if you want to go down that path and talk about this is a new regime, Justin Fields isn't their guy. Maybe they don't see what they like in a quarterback. Maybe there's something that they prefer a little bit more. Maybe they want the guy that's a quick processor, and can, more, that level of guy, and not, they don't maybe care about the deep passing. I mean, I'm making that up, but like maybe there's something there where Poles wasn't convinced and wasn't going to invest anything in particular to try to prop him up. But I think that given the stretch that Fields had with taking that offense and putting it on his back, doing what he did on the ground, but also like there was some really good passing games in there. Even if the volume was limited, his efficiency was great. and he can
Yeah.
still throw it deep. So I guess hypothetically, Lester, if that happened, what would be your reaction?
Yeah, I would be shocked. I mean, but I also kind of respect Poles for doing it his way. I guess I'd have to say that because again, this wasn't his guy. He inherited him, and we saw him make a big change to the roster. Top to bottom, he made a lot of changes because he wants to make this rework this in the image he has. So if he decides to go a different direction, I would I would not agree with it, but like I said, even I said with Ryan Pace, some of the swings and misses he had. I'm like, hey, this is his belief. You got to be convicted. Good for him for doubling down and doing what he had to do. It doesn't always work, and that's something we have for a hindsight discussion. So I would not be happy with it. Because I think Fields is the guy. I think he's gonna eventually show what he has, and all the talk about making him a running back, that's just stupid. The reason why he's able to get such good yardage as he does is because of his scrambling ability as a quarterback. He's not a running back. He wasn't trained as a running back. He doesn't have that running back vision. Where he's doing all this off instinct and off athleticism, and that's not enough to be an actual running back.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a crazy sentiment, but this kind of reminds me of that Family Guy gif, right? Where but like, let's take what's behind the box. It could be anything, even a Justin Fields, right?
Yeah.
Like that's kind of what the sense is a little bit. You feel pretty good about where Fields is at. I feel like the league feels pretty good about where Fields is at. This was a bad game. Please don't run off the track because of a bad game with a disintegrating offensive line. And he clearly got banged up, right? At some point, and that kind of took away his desire or his ability to stretch out and run in the open field. Still put up more yards running through the rest of the game. I mean, he still got some positive gains, but I would be I would be shocked. In the rest of that tweet, 2 first-round picks and 2 additional picks is what no one's focusing on. It's just the trade.
Yeah.
That would be you'd be like, well, okay, maybe
It's
I can kind of
interesting,
see it, like maybe I can do that. Because really, if they get the number 1 pick, they got to trade out of it. It's malpractice if they don't trade out of it and at least get some capital out of there. Because if you're not taking a quarterback at 1 in a draft that has good quarterbacks, like you're like it's just that's not how you do it. Like that's malpractice. So you'd have to trade out of that pick. Hopefully you get a ton for it. But if they for some reason said no, we think this guy's a generational prospect. We like Justin Fields, but we're making the tough decision to go in a different direction and take this draft capital for him and whatever. I mean, I'd be shocked. I'd be probably sad because I really like Justin Fields.
Yeah.
But I'd also like you said, I'd respect him for doing it his way. And then we'd have a lot of content. So from that perspective, that would be great. All right. So caught up in a numbers game, stat of the week. What do you have for us?
My number this week is 10. And that is the number of sacks this season by the Chicago Bears defensive linemen. And that is the lowest in franchise history. That's that courtesy of CHGO's Will DeWitt, who has been a guest of the channel here. That's pitiful. 10 sacks out of your front 4 there. This year the total is 20. Of course, talked about this a couple weeks ago with Brisker, Jaquan Brisker. He's leading the team in sacks at 4. Among the defensive linemen in the league, there's 2 guys tied for 3 each. Justin Jones and Travis Gibson. Brutal. 10 sacks from your defensive line. I mean, that has to change.
Okay, so we had the same stat.
I had a feeling.
I don't think that's ever happened, but 20 sacks overall. I have a little bit more. I can go a little deeper. So I went back and I looked from 1982 on. 1982 is kind of insane because it's only 9 games, and in 1982 the team still had 30.
That was the strike year, yeah.
Yeah, it was a strike.
That was still Hampton, right? Hampton was on that squad.
Hampton
was
had
that
9.
Dent's? Was that Dent's rookie year?
Or
might have been a year before.
Yeah, I mean, Dent didn't really break out till 84, and then he broke out, right? So, okay, yeah, Denton, like the middle of the year, and he
Yeah.
just goes on like a heater. Like it's kind of amazing. I went back and I did a bunch of Richard Dent stuff in the off season. I was just like, holy crap! Like just a heater that he went on at 84. So here's so 2003, which is random, but like 2003 was bad year. It's 18 sacks. It's the lowest in franchise history. So the Bears did sneak up above the low water mark here
Yay.
for 2022, right? So 20 sacks is the second least in franchise history. They're not going to catch the third, which is I think 28. So that's not going to happen. But the team leader, the lowest number for the team leader is very much in play, and not even in play. It's going to happen. The team leader, and again, stacks are an official stat starting in 1982. The team leader every single year, I charted it all out. Who do you think has it? It's 2003. I mean,
2003.
that's yeah.
Is that Philip Daniels' year, maybe?
So Daniels has never actually led the team, but it's a very
Okay.
close
Okay.
comparison here. So Alex Brown, he of the like giant hands, Alex
Okay.
Brown. Alex Brown led the team in sacks 3 different years, and it was all like pretty low level, very low level years. 6, 6, and then in this year, 5.5. So that was the team leader in 2003, the worst franchise year for sacks. Only 18. Alex Brown had 5.5 of them. Unless Jaquan Brisker picks up 2 sacks in this game, they're going to set another terrible record here. We could go on and talk about all of the terrible records that this team is going to set, but here's another one. The sack leader is going to be the lowest number of sacks that we've ever seen, and it is a defensive back, which that will be the first time that will happen. Unless again Justin Jones has like a sack and a half or whatever, Brisker's going to lead this team in sacks. Uh, that is, I believe, I may have missed something, but I believe he will be, if he doesn't get another one, he'll be third in franchise history for single season sacks as a defensive back. Do you care to guess individuals from the 80s who would top him? I'm giving you like some clues here.
As defensive backs, I gotta assume Dave Duerson is on that list.
Dave Duerson had 7 in
And
1986, so that is first place for defensive backs.
I'm gonna assume Fensick's probably up there too.
No.
Oh, dang it.
Do you want another shot?
Doug Plank, did he make the list?
No. I would have thought that's where I would have gone to. So
Safe.
Todd
Yeah.
Todd Bell
Todd Bell,
in
yes.
1984, which 1984 is insane. It's 72 sacks. It's like just an insane year for the Bears defense. He had 4.5. So Brisker, if he gets another one somehow, he could at least be second place in franchise history for defensive back sacks. And again, I might have missed one. I won't claim that I had a perfect system there of trying to find this in the 30 minutes before the show, but it looked to me like Brisker is going to be the only defensive back to lead the team for sure, and third place, if not maybe sneak into second place for defensive backs in franchise history in sacks. So it's something, I guess.
That's we knew this defense was going to be bad. We hope to be a little better than this, but it's surpassed even the Mel Tucker era of suck. It's a pretty bad defense. You mentioned the chances of a guy getting multiple sacks, and Alex Brown had a 4-sack game during 04 that season to kind of push him to 6. He was so it's possible. It's possible. Justin Jones or Travis Gibson could put up multiple sacks, but I don't think so.
It's just been such a such a bad year that it seems impossible. I mean, the Bears had 1 sack going into like that last, not the kneel down drive, but the last drive, and they got that one against the backup quarterback.
Yeah.
And until that moment, it was like another game where they're just going to have 1 sack. Anyway, yeah, it's brutal. Let's move on before I continue to depress myself with more bad stats. Here's more bad stats.
Here's more bad stats. Yeah.
Here's the Fields report: 7 out of 21, 75 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. The touchdown was very nice. It was for Cole Kmet. It was a nice little play, wide open, really good design. Once again, we have really nice opening drive from offensive coordinator Luke Getsy. The interception was one of the weirder interceptions that you'll ever see in your entire life. The Lions rushed 0. They dropped everybody into coverage, including rookie defensive end Aiden Hutchinson sitting on the sideline, who then jumped a panicked pass late and got an interception. Fields, of course, added 10 carries for 132 yards, getting him pretty close to that record set by Lamar Jackson for most rushing yards by a quarterback. And he gave Lester a lot of work in sack watch by taking 7 sacks. So maybe the worst Fields report that we've had this year.
7 sacks and 7 completed passes, which is pretty brutal. I did the post game with Robert yesterday. I talked about a little bit there. It's just, Fields has been pretty good. His pocket presence, the last month or so. He, I believe, from the players, I think he may be responsible for the most sacks this season on the Bears. Braxton Jones may be up there with him, but the last month or so, I haven't really given any to Fields. He's been pretty good. The sacks he's taken has been the fault of someone else, or just scheme related or coverage related. But this game, I haven't had a chance to look at the all 22 yet, but I'm guessing there'll be at least 1 or 2 that I'm going to have to pin on Fields. I know he had the one where he ran out of bounds, which I don't understand. I'll never understand why a quarterback would ever go out of bounds, especially in this situation. I mean, there was no one around him, just chuck out of bounds. So he's going to get pinned for a couple. It's my guess. There's a couple others that I'm looking at. I'm like, man, if the coverage is tight, maybe I can kind of understand, because he was stuck in the pocket, had nowhere to go. You can't just throw it out of bounds from the pocket. You got to be outside the pocket. So it's a brutal game, and then the rushing yards, it would have been nice to see him get it. I don't think he's going to get it, because I don't think he's going to play against the Vikings.
I don't either. There's been a lot of talk about the betting line. The betting line
big movement,
betting line opened at -1. The Vikings were a 1-point favorite to beat the Bears. The Vikings, people are the Vikings are just going to rest their starters. I mean, I'm not so sure, maybe, but they still have somewhat of a chance to get that 2 seed. They really kind of cost themselves against Green Bay, but they have the chance against get the 2 seed. But if I were them, I would want to win that game. I'm just saying, you want to make sure you're giving yourself that chance in case the Niners don't win. But maybe they're just going to say, no, the week of rest is going to be better for us. But if Justin Fields doesn't play, what chance does this Bears offense have? He's the only thing that's given them any kind of hope. The line has jumped to 4.5, meaning that either the book knows something that Fields isn't going to play, or that the Vikings are probably going to play their starters to try to win. One of those 2 things changed something in their mind in that line move. That's a big movement early week. So there's stay tuned.
The way the schedule is lined up is the Bears are noon, the Bears Vikings, and they have the Niners at the 3:25 kick. So they made it so that way the Vikings won't know. So the Vikings will have to, I mean, unless they don't care about that 2 seed, which is possible, because if they get the 2 seed and the Packers win, now they got to take on the Packers. And I'm not saying they're afraid of the Packers, but the Packers just whipped their ass pretty good. So
yeah, but
maybe they want to.
I think you want you want the 2 seed home, because you get the second home game.
Yeah,
that would be insane coaching if you were like, no, I'm going to throw this game so that I don't have to play the Packers. But who knows? Well, I would like to see the Niners just stomp the Packers. Let's be honest. They seem to do that regularly for us. I don't know. Come playoff times, I root for the Niners a lot because of that situation. Just saying. So, all right. Well, let's take a quick break. Other side of this, we'll do everybody's favorite segment, the 3 Bears. All right, Lester, hot bowl of porridge, cold bowl of porridge, which, boy, you did not have to heat up the burners much. We could hand out a lot of cold bowls of porridge and the just right. Who did you have for your hot bowl of porridge this week?
For the hot, again, it's kind of box score scouting, but I'm going to go with the guy that I did not anticipate to do anything like this, and that is linebacker Joe Thomas. He showed up with 12 tackles in the box score. A tackle for loss. He had a tackle on special teams. A lot of his tackles were made, getting blown back. But when you give up 41 points, is what happens. Again, the spirit of the hot bowl is a guy that exceeded expectations. I did not expect to see Joe Thomas getting close to a career high in tackles for himself. I think his career high may have been 13. I went back and looked, but 12 tackles. Joe Thomas.
I mean, Roquan who?
Yeah.
Jack Sanborn who?
Yeah.
Let's just keep moving on to the next linebacker. I think part of that is because the Lions just said we're going to give both of our running backs a bunch of carries, and because they're just trying to milk clock late, and linebackers make tackles. But yes, that's true. I did not expect double-digit tackles from Joe Thomas, not to be confused with future Hall of Famer Joe Thomas. So my hot bowl of porridge goes to punter Trenton Gill, the Guillotine. 7 punts. 3 went inside the 20. No touchbacks. Very important. No touchbacks. He had a 43.6 net yards per punt. Only gave up 16 return yards, which is quite good, meaning that most of his punts either forced a fair catch or were downed, right? Like you don't want to see guys really. There's a couple of rookies or across the league punters, and they're pretty good. They got big legs, right? Like you kind of seen it. Ryan Stonehouse is one of them. They're just booming the ball, right? Sometimes you outkick your coverage, where you have kicked the ball so far and you're giving a huge lane for that returner. That's not really Gill's game. Gill does not have the biggest leg. It's fine. It's definitely NFL worthy. He can work on some strength and maybe some technique and get that up a little bit. But what you have to like is that he does force a fair number of fair catches. And he's able to be control. He doesn't have a lot of touchbacks. A couple of the touchbacks that he's had were really missed opportunities by special teamers that could have downed the ball. So his stats could be a little better. And I know I'm talking about punting stats, but that's what happens when you lose 41-10 and the punter punts 7 times, which is the most that we've seen him. But they were really good punts. And then he kicked off 3 times. All 3 were touchbacks. This was a good game out of Trenton Gill. I was very impressed. 2 good holds. Like let's just talk about it, right? Good. I know it's a bit of a shtick. I get it. Like I'm trying to give him a nickname. It's catching on a little bit. Happy about that. But honestly, it was actually a pretty good game. Like he punted well. He did the things that you want to see.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a little more on Trenton Gill in our last category, just right.
Okay. All right. Well, let's flip it around.
Let's go to cold.
For you.
I mean, where do we start? I could have gone with several places like we talked about. I got to go Braxton Jones, and this is bittersweet for me because just last week, man, I did a video. Braxton Jones, I thought he might have had one of his best games of the season against the Buffalo Bills. The bull rush continues to be a bugaboo for him. It's going to get him until the offseason when he has a chance to work on that. But there were at least 2 just blown right back that I think, again, I'm going to look at the all 22 to make sure, but it looks like 2 sacks going to be on Jones. He gave up some other pressures off that. The book's out on him. I mean, it's, the season's almost over. Teams know, you're going to attack Braxton Jones, you attack him with the bull rush. He has to know that. And now, not only does he have to work on getting better against the bull rush in the offseason, now he has to be playing a little chess here, thinking, okay, once I show this, what is the defensive lineman's counter going to be to me? So he's going to have to get in the lab and really work on some stuff here. But I got to go Braxton Jones this week. And if you haven't not checked out the video, though, it was a nice video last week. Me and our guy Zach Rosenblum, we had a chance to go out there, and he had some nice plays against the Bills. Let's forget about his lion performance.
Well, this is a burn the tape situation in a lot of ways.
He was upset after the game.
I think anybody associated with this game should be upset. I started writing down things just, cold bowl, right? And I just had offensive line.
Yeah.
I had Justin Fields. I had wide receivers. Byron Pringle, like 4 targets, no catches. Like, what are you doing, right? Dante Pettis, right? Like, I had all of these notes, and I just put just gross, and then defense. The entire defense, I just kind of called out as cold bowl. Terrible, right? Coaching, terrible. What are we doing late in the game? It's over. Why are you putting Fields back out there? What's the point? You realize that you're not going to get any value out of that. It's over. Pull him. What are you doing having him still on the field? Doesn't make any sense to me. You can give it to literally anybody except for the special teamers.
Yeah.
That's it. Like anybody that was on offense or defense, give it to them. Like anybody in the coaching staff, give it to them. Like no one deserves any love for getting blown out by the Lions. And I like the Lions. They're a little better this year, but there's no excuse to getting blown out by this much. It was gross. Give it to who you want. Everybody's live. It is a no bad answer category this week. Just right. You had more Gill stuff. Let's go.
I got more Gill stuff. I wouldn't just right. I mean, I thought about going hot with Gill. But, I think at this point as a rookie punter, I think we're kind of expecting this kind of performance out of him. It was like 7 punts. So, I mean, the most he's had. I talked about his 45.9 average, 43.6 net, 3 inside the 20, like you already talked about. He's a rookie punter. The Bears have him under control at a relatively cheap contract for 4 years. I did dig a little deeper on him. 63 punts this season, which is 16th ranked. His net average is a little low. It's 29th ranked at 39.8, but that's the return yards. I think he had 3 touchbacks also. 45.9 average is ranked 21st in the league this year. 18 punts inside the 20, which is 28.6% of his punts. 30th. So he needs to improve his directional punting a little bit, which is something he can do. I think he can do that here. But did you realize among the entire Bears history, and I went back and checked the history of the franchise among punters, and I'm not talking about a guy that had a punt or two. I'm talking about guys that have at least a season's worth of punting. The guillotine is number 1 all time in Bears history with his average and his net average. The 2 best marks in Chicago Bears history is the guillotine.
I mean, I have moved on from Brad Maynard as my punter of choice. Maybe not Sam Householder, who shares an alma mater with Maynard, but I'm all in. I'm all in. I've certainly moved on from Pat O'Donnell. I'll tell you that much. Yeah, that's great. That's a great start to his career. And again, you don't think about it like, oh, a punter is a punter. These aren't finished products, right? Like these guys can get into the weight room. They can put on a little bit more muscle. They can work on their technique. Some of the stuff with punting is situational, right? Like if you have a lot more midfield punts where you're pooching, there's a little bit of difference. It's hard to break out punts without really going into it. And no one does that. So you can do that with your one player, but I'm not going to do that with all 32 punters, which would give me like an actual apples to apples comparisons with other guys. But you can maybe there's some stuff we can do to tease out a little bit, but yeah, good stuff. Since I already used Gil for the hot bowl for just right for me, Velus Jones.
Okay.
1 kick return, 63 yards, 1 target, 0 catches. Exactly what I expect out of Velus Jones at this point. A good kick return and adding nothing on offense. Not to be a jerk about it, but
there was the 1 jet sweep. To be fair, he had a nice jet sweep. He got around the edge, which is how you want to use him.
Yeah,
a couple runs, maybe maybe 1 or 2 touches a game. See what he has with the juice.
There was some people saying, well, maybe Velus Jones is a little bit more Cordero Patterson than you might think. And so if that's the case, then let's see what he can do just being as a running back or getting him more on those jet sweeps, like you said. Not adding anything in the passing game, though. So anyway, but great return. It was a lot of fun. You took it out 8 yards deep, 7 yards deep. And so that was just trying to see if you could get something to go right before half. And of course, then the next play was that really weird 0 rush interception. But but there was a point where like, oh, that's great, right? And you almost wonder why you don't do that a little bit more. When things are going poorly, you're following your rules. If it's deep in the end zone, you're letting it go for a touchback. But you might just want to Devin Hester rule it, where you just say everything's live. Like you just take it out because you never know if you can get a spark here. You might have to do something like that, especially when you're playing a game that you're probably going to lose. You might as well try to give him a little bit more. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't want to start drives at the 8-yard line either.
I think you got to take a chance when you have legitimate 4.3 speed. I mean, that's you touch the ball, you're a threat anytime you touch the ball because of the speed. Take it out every chance you get. I mean, those rules are there for a reason, but I think with a guy like Velus Jones, I think you got to break those rules.
I agree. I don't have a lot of other nice things to say about that game. And let's go to that golden rule. If you don't have anything nice to say, you shouldn't say anything at all. I could probably complain for longer, but why don't we get out of here at a crisp, 40 some minutes as opposed to going too long. We'll stick around for our YouTube folks to go through some questions and comments there. And so an airing of grievances, I'm sure, awaits us there. You can join us every Monday, it's been every Monday, right? For the most part, we haven't really moved that. 6 Central Time. Only one game left, so this is the penultimate episode. There is one left if you wanted to join us on Second City Gridiron YouTube. And we're talking about before the show what we're going to do in the off season. Lester and I have some ideas on how we can kind of keep this going. Maybe not do the categories so much, but have the two of us try to work in some fun off season work, and look forward to sharing some of our plans with you on that. I am looking forward to not recording 4 times a week, but we will continue to do that until the end of the year. And what do you have going on, Lester?
Yeah, I think this whole week will be at least up till Wednesday. I mean, the next couple of days of looking at sacks. So I'm going to try and get a jump start on that. I got like a skeleton post I have to work on every week. I get that all prepped. Of course, making the gifts is a pain in the butt. So, it's going to be a lot of sack watch prep before the actual sack watch drops on Wednesday.
Look for our friend Kev, who's filling in for me on 10 Thoughts on the NFL this week. I thought you guys would enjoy that. The Bandhammer writing up that article. I needed a break. I was kind of out of ideas, to be honest with you. It's a weird time of the year. I'm not seeing the board right. I think I missed every single bet yesterday. So not good for me. We will finish up with the last 10-minute drill, probably Friday. Maybe, who knows? Maybe it'll be later than that, like it was this week. The Last Gambler's Den on Sunday morning. So join us for those. And until next week, where we wrap up the season, bear down.
Nice. Hey, were you off work today? I know a lot of we were off. Okay, I was having a discussion with my wife. I said a lot of people are off work. She disagreed, and I'm like, I think a lot of people are off. This is like a federal
observed.
Holiday. The observed. Thank you. Whatever. She's down there, heard me taking a shot. She said, "Whatever."
Well, I mean, yeah,
she's usually smarter than me, so it's good that I got one over on her right here.
Yeah, I had today off. Nice. State holiday.
I knew it.
It doesn't mean that it was a fun day, though. Still doing stuff and trying to get ready for this. And
see,
it wasn't.
It's the love of the game right there.
I got it.
We're off. Look at there, Sweden.
I should have just skipped this replay. It was a gross game. Absolutely, Axel. Appreciate that. My wife was just in Sweden a couple months ago. She was in Malmo. So if you're still with us and know where Malmo is, I'm sure you do. So that was.
I am half Swedish. That is my nationality. The most. I'm mostly half. So.
Is that where Wiltfong comes from?
That's the German side of things. My mom's side is 100% Swedish. My dad's side is the Wiltfong is German name. It's mostly German, but there's a lot of other stuff on that side.
ML Fields says Jones has been the best defensive lineman all year. Yep, I mean we agree. We've been saying it as well. You just don't want him to be the best. He's not the best. He shouldn't be your best defensive lineman. That's the point. Number one Bears fan has bought into number one. So that would be rough. Meathead. Trying to see if he made a Meathead comment or not, but Bears fans are all excited for this offseason. Why? General Manager Poles has not done anything other than make the Bears a worse team. I mean,
this is how you do a rebuild, though.
You
have to tear it down before you build it back up. And what else are we going to do as Bears fans? Oh, it's going to suck forever. You got to give him a chance. I mean, Poles will have a chance to kind of see what he has, and maybe he will suck. But do you anyone want to listen to someone come out here and talk for an hour about how, woe is me, the Bears are going to suck forever? Stop watching the game.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens.
Yeah, Meathead's kind of going crazy here.
Yeah.
dominated. We got Don. Congratulations, Don.
Hey, congratulations.
Take that energy to next week and win. I don't need to see Green Bay in the playoffs.
Man, that would
Like,
suck.
let's figure this out. Like, we're going to cheer for you, come through. That's
Sunday
all I'm
night
saying.
game.
Yeah,
The
it has to be,
Lions.
right?
It is. Yeah, it's out there now. It's a Sunday night game. It's the so if the Seahawks win,
then the
if it-
Lions are
then
eliminated.
the Lions have nothing to play for. But I
They can
can't
knock
see
'em out.
Dan Campbell not wanting to spoil the Packers' chance.
Yeah, you
because
can
the
knock 'em
Packers
out.
still winning in.
Yeah.
So that Packers win in. The Seahawks win. They knock the Lions out.
Surprised they wouldn't have done the AFC South game, but those are two bad teams, and they know Green Bay sells, so that must be why. Okay.
Well, there's one game they haven't given a time yet. I think it may be that AFC South. It's either one or depending on what happens tonight with the Bills and Bengals. That game either going to be on at 1 or in the afternoon slot. But yeah, the night slot is set, so it's going to be Packers Lions, which is Green Bay's a ratings draw.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't care for the Seahawks one way or the other. They have the Rams though, right? So I think
so.
Top of my head. So
the schedule is on the Windy City Ground right now. I put the schedule up. I asked a question though. So yesterday was obviously the Vikings Packers. I don't think I've ever rooted to see a Packer win. I was kind of hoping the Packers were going to win just because we've been talking about the last few weeks. Vikings fans are getting chippy.
Yes.
Like I kind of wanted to see a Packer win just so they could say, okay, maybe we should chill out with this whole stuff here. And they got smoked. I mean, the Packers showed them, hey, we had a rough start to our season, but hey, we're still the best team here. The record doesn't reflect it, obviously, but still got Aaron Rodgers, and he's still doing his thing, and that's still interesting to see. But I don't want to see the Packers in the playoffs just because. Let's go.
I can't.
Let's go Lions here.
I can't. I really liked. Ideally, you see the Packers finish 8-9 and miss the playoffs. That's a really good spot for the Packers because they're not having the super high draft pick. And that's great. Like they can go 8-9 and miss the playoffs every year. I'm fine with that. But that was I was hoping that the Vikings would take care of business. Again, something I read wrong. I read the whole board wrong yesterday. It was bad. It was the worst week. Worst week I've had all year. And it was just weird. And like a lot of those games my bets looked great. And then late, just sort of crumbled, like the Bucks coming alive. What the heck, right? I bet the over in the Bears Lions game that looked like it was going to coast. Looked like that was going to go into the 60s, no problem. And then nope, Bears just couldn't do anything. So that was rough. What was Nagy's system? Akuse 24. I literally have been covering this team for 8 years, and the entire Nagy era, I kept asking, what is his system? Because he couldn't link running and passing, and it was just plays. None of his passing plays linked together. He didn't have a system.
I think he was talking about the comment above his here. ML Field was talking about Fields in year 2 in the system. So I think he was kind of taking a shot at. We saw the last year 2 system not really do much. It kind of went decline.
They're not the same.
They're not the same. Yeah, the Getsy system, I think is closer to the Shanahan style stuff that he wants to do. Whereas the Nagy system, I love Andy Reid's offense, but that's not what he was doing. That was nothing. I don't know what the hell. That was like we've always said, it's a collection of plays. That's all it was.
Stuff he liked that he put up on the blackboard, but you used it once, right? There's so much in the Shanahan system that plays off of each other, right? There's the counters to the counters to the counters, right? There's all these things and wrinkles and just ways to disguise things. And you ran this here, which opens up 2 more different plays off of that. Like I'm not saying Luke Getsy is Kyle Shanahan by any stretch of the imagination, but that system historically has much more fundamentals. Yeah. The Reid system, West Coast base and all that kind of stuff, Reid is a genius. And Andy Reid knows how to kind of shape and mold that stuff. And he's a great architect. He can bring in these junior architects underneath him and pull these ideas. And I think Nagy had a role under Reid, and he was able to draw some cool pass plays up that would work once. But then when you burn them, you can't use them again, and they don't fit anywhere else. So you're spending all this effort over here. So if you go back and you watch 2018, it starts off pretty hot because all he's kind of using all there's an Arrested Development episode where where um, Job like just runs through all of these ideas that Jason Bateman gives him, right? And just like he gets hired by a different firm, and he gave him like a year's worth of ideas or something. And it's like the first meeting, he just runs through all of the all of the ideas. That's pretty much what happened. He just kind of ran out of ideas, and he was pretty much figured out. If you go back and really watch 2018, that offense starts to be really bad the second part of the year, the second half of the year. There's just no system, and it just never showed anywhere. There was no improvement. Wasn't any improvement from Nagy, right? So if that happens, then that'll be the story there. But I'm not going to automatically flush offensive coordinators down the drain after their first attempt at running an offense. I mean, these guys, you have to give them space to sink or swim.
Much like I want to see Fields with an actual NFL supporting cast, I want to see Getsy, what he can do when he has some actual weapons out there, when he understands that he can trust his pass pro a little more than he has this year. There's a lot of stuff he's done where just like, we talk about throwaway. It's like he's just throwing away a play because he knows that I have to run pass in some situations because I can't drop back all the time. And yeah, he's had some missteps as a first year play caller, but I think those will clean up as him and Fields, their bond grows, and as there's a better supporting cast, because it's awful. I mean, who's going to be on this team next year that's currently on this offense? He's in a key position.
Not very many. He has shown really like interesting and sound understanding of a run game, which is much more than Nagy ever could do. He has shown that he's willing to adapt, right? After that mini bye, really changed things up. And he's shown that he does have some chops in terms of crafting some plays to get guys open. Doesn't happen that often, but he doesn't have a lot of route winners, right? And so that's part of it too. Mooney never got off the ground. I don't know what happened to him, and then Mooney got hurt for the year. That really hurt. I mean, that hurt this offense because you just didn't have anybody that Fields could rely on. It's
rough game. And I think next week's game is going to be equally as rough, and for different reasons. I think it's going to be a very boring Nathan Peterman led attack. Maybe Byron Pringle will finally show up a little bit. Maybe he'll make some plays for the Bears.
I'm not going to bet on that.
No.
You ever go back and watch like old football games, like from like the 90s? I mean, I know the Bears were atrocious in the 90s, but even like just football in the 90s, like my best friend does this. Like he just like will send me random clips of a game that he's watching, and it's a completely different game.
Yeah.
That's kind of what you learn, but it's so much like heavy package, fullback, run the football. There's a lot of punting, it's 3 and outs, it's that 3 yards cloud of dust kind of stuff. And it's just, how did I love this game so much when that was the product versus what this is? So much more exciting and interesting. Yeah. And like, the athletes are, they're so much faster. They're so, they've opened up the field so that, these wide receivers can actually run routes in the middle of the field, getting their head taken off. The game is just so much different. But what I'm struck by is that football is still football. Yeah. Like there's still some fundamentals that, blocking, tackling, it doesn't go away, so you still have to do that stuff. So it's all well and good to play Madden and run 4 verticals, but at some point, having a guy that understands the fundamentals of running the football, that's a good base. So I think that's one of my positive takeaways out of this year, is that you got a guy that knows how to do both.
The one constant I think is football is won and lost in the trenches. No matter what area you're in, you got to be strong up front. You don't have to have, Pro Bowlers at every spot, especially on offense. We talk about all the time. Give me 5 guys that are good working in unison. But, you got to be, it's one right there. If you can control the line of scrimmage, odds are you're going to have a pretty good football team, and you'll be in the mix every season.
Yep. I think that's a good place to end it.
I like it.
Let's get out of here just under an hour.
Nice.
We'll see you guys next week for the season wrap up.